Howdy folks, John here. Thought I'd come out on a beautiful, misty morning. Well, the mist is all gone now. We're left with the dew on the plants. And now the sun gets to dry them up. Sometimes I'll see bees or yellow jackets. They'll be sitting on the corn, just going ahead and sucking up all the water from the dew. I wanted to talk about mulch today. You can see I tend to prefer to use a mulch. I'll sometimes use straw. I'll sometimes use chopped cactus, which is under this. There we go. Chopped cactus gets all kind of gooey. It is good for the soil though. I mean, look what this stuff does for the soil. Got a bean there. Let's see if I can learn how to point this camera right. Alrighty. Gonna dig into this here. Wow. Look at this. I mean, how much soil can you dig into your soil garden? I mean, look at this. This is beautiful, beautiful, real nice moisture level that's being kept pretty stable even during our temperatures. Right now we're in the 90s every day. And the nighttime, if there's condensation coming up, it'll moisture coming up from the bottom, it'll be condensing on the straw and stays in there. I mean, you really need to have a mulch. And there's drawbacks to some kinds. Some straw mulch, the seeds aren't shook out too well, and you're going to have grasses grow up all over. Here where I'm using this cactus mulch, it's quite effective at blocking anything right where the plants are not. I have to make sure it's pulled away from the corn, and as the corn grows I can add more and get it deeper around the plants. But I'll be putting straw here pretty soon. I really like straw for corn. It really helps build the soil quite well, and it holds the soil moisture so well for corn. And if it's real thick like I have it, once the corn's tall enough that you can put it very thick, well, you've got a very, very good coverage and get pretty good weed control. So here we are with a different type of mulch. This one is a combination of both wood shavings, which I've been using for a good long time, and a type of rice hulls from the California rice production. This is a rice plant here that's come about from the rice hulls. I really like the rice hulls. They lay on the ground real nicely. They kind of shield out most of the weeds, except for you do get the rice weeds, which I don't think are a problem, because all I have to do is not water for a little bit, and I think they're going to die quick. The asparagus would probably be fine for a while. Speaking of that, let's look how this soil is. It's been a few days since it's been watered. It still looks good. I gave a nice deep mulch and a nice deep watering. Another mulch that's quite common to use is wood chips or pine needles. They're both great. If you have weeds, you can lay down a little bit of cardboard first and then cover that with your wood chips, and it will keep weeds down even more. Say, for instance, if you've got a yard and you want to convert it to a garden very quickly, this is probably the quickest way to do it. Just get a whole mess of cardboard, tear all the staples out, take the tape off what you can, and lay them down like 2 layers thick, wet them down, cover them with a couple inches of compost, and then you put down a nice thick layer of regular arborist shavings. This is the Paul Gauchi method, back to Eden method, which is a very, very tried and true method to use. If you use this, you're going to be pretty guaranteed good results on about the 3rd year. It takes a little while to learn the system and for your soil to adjust to it, but this is eminently doable. Now, not all mulches are affordable or even obtainable at any kind of price to everybody. For instance, I have a hard time getting wood chips here because we're so far remote and people don't come by with them very often. And I've been using cactus. I just cut up these cactus. I have to make sure they're very, very thinly sliced and don't get a chance to grow. I don't get many that do grow. This was done a couple months ago, and there's really no growth in it. And this was done a couple of months ago, and I recently put another layer down about a week or 2 ago, and it's doing just fine. I'm trying to build the pathways up to the height of the beds I have where the plants are. I raised them up so that they would have really good drainage. And here I'm using a mix of wood chips and shavings and pine needles on the ground under these raspberries. You do not need to worry about acidifying your soil with pine needles. They're not really going to acidify your soil. And I'm a little bit on the alkaline side. I would just love if the pine needles would acidify my soil. So here we have a listing of some of the ground covers I'm using. The mulches. The first one is a cactus. That's for the walkway. Then we've got wood shavings and pine needles for the raspberries. Then we have more cactus for another walkway. And then we have an asparagus bed that has various wood shavings in it. And then more cactus, more wood shavings, and a great big pile, compost pile over there of cactus. Here's a real nice asparagus bed that's been mulched mainly with wood shavings. I put the wood shavings down when I put the melons in. And wood shavings are among my favorites. You have to wet it down. Don't do too much at once. You layer it on and you wet it down, and the layers lock together better so it doesn't all blow away. Here's another thing to keep in mind is always recycle any organic matter that you're throwing away. I put in this trench compost pit and I just add to it through the weeks. Get it really long. And at the far end there where I started on it maybe a month or 6 weeks ago, I can start planting potatoes now. And I'll work my way down this way with potatoes, planting over the course of a couple of months. Since a lot of this was cactus in there, I got to make sure I chop down those little cactus that you see over there and make sure they don't grow through the potatoes. There's a little bit of weeding needs to be done here and there. That's the sort of thing always best to keep up on it. Now, just so you know, there is a difference between straw and hay. Just to give you a quick rundown on it. Say if you want to grow wheat, the wheat kernel is the part you want to have. So you go ahead and you let it all dry to a certain degree, a certain amount of moisture in the kernel, and then you cut the whole field, you shake out the seeds, and then you've got the leftover straw, and that gets sold to someone like me or a horse owner who wants to use it for their horse stable. That's all well and fine. Hay is different. Hay is meant for the animals to actually eat, because straw is just something for them to lay on and absorbs manure and odors of urine and such like that. So hay is meant for them to sit and munch on. As such, it has to have a higher nutrient content. And they're usually going to be growing something to a little less of a mature stage. So oat hay is going to be cut when it is just about fully ripe. And that way it stores well enough, but it's more palatable to the animal. And as such, there's going to be a number of seeds in it that are going to be active and be activated once they get in the soil. And it all depends on the type hay you're dealing with too. Something like alfalfa isn't going to bother me, because alfalfa isn't just going to grow easily and readily in these conditions right when it's put as a mulch on the ground. It's not being seeded in. So what you do is make sure that you understand the status of the type of material you're getting. Just like I get rice seedlings from the rice hulls, you can get pine seedlings from ground up arborist chips. Okay, here in the strawberry patch, we have a more finished and finely ground straw. This one's actually a mix of straw and hay. And you can do something like this by getting alfalfa and running it over with a lawnmower. When it's chopped up like this, you can fit in under the plants nicely, much better than you can when it's great big giant long straw stems that are 3 feet long. Now here we have a wood chip mulch, and this is something I've been using like this for about 40 years, and I highly recommend the wood chip mulch along with hay or straw, depending on your availability. What I like about this with potatoes, you can do this. Just find where the plant is, dig down through all the mulch, see where the potatoes grow. Ah, there we go. Now you got to make sure you keep the mulch real deep or your potatoes will get green. So this in here will wind up being in getting planted again, and the other ones that are, not green, they get eaten. So you mound more straw around them to keep to keep the potatoes from getting green. And this is called hilling. This is what they mean by hilling, and it just covers the area with enough to drown out the light. The potatoes can't have all that light. I think with mulch, the trick is to get what works for you at a price and availability that you can deal with, that works for your garden and your circumstance, your methods of using it. I'm fine with straw. Straw does most of what I need. I mean, look at this. Here we got straw back behind the cucumbers. We got cactus in between the cucumbers. The cactus is there mainly to keep the birds from pecking at the cucumbers. They hide the cucumbers until they're big enough that the birds don't want to eat them anymore. And the straw is put back there just to make it uncomfortable for the birds to walk around and look for things. Maybe the trick is just get the right stuff for you. Get the right stuff that's cheap enough that you can move around easy, that's organic, isn't dyed, isn't rubber or plastic. And if you can produce on your own, that's great too. But you should be mulching. Well, folks, thank you much for visiting today. Have a good day. Have a good garden.